Hello, my name is Grian, and today I'm doing a new series called Build School, where I really delve into one particular thing about a house and try and teach you as many things about it as possible. And today's episode is on roofs. I've got 5 completely naked houses that I'm going to be doing a few different styles of roof and explaining what makes one good. Let's get right into it. Okay, so I've copied and pasted 5 vanilla houses just from a normal village, and I've just made them completely naked with wood. And what you would see on them is something like this, just staircases straight over to create some sort of inverted cone. Now, that's sort of the default way to build a roof, and I'm just going to show you quickly how we can make that better. So the first thing I do is knock the corner, or the right angle out of the front of the building and the back so that I can integrate the slopes into the building. It does mean that the roof will be slightly lower, but I prefer it that way. Once you've finished that sort of default style of having a slant on both sides, there are several things that we can do to improve it. The first and probably most important one is to do this overhang on the sides of the buildings. Look how flat it is, but once I've added an overhang, it really improves the whole thing. Just by adding just that extra layer over the edge of the wall, you really help your build. The second thing is to add a dormer. You can see myself here adding staircase blocks going towards the front of the building, so you have that extra dynamic to the build. Now, in a normal house, you'd have a room in there, but obviously this build's a bit too small for that, and I'm just showing you the concept here again. This is not showing you how to build a great house, this is just how to do roofs better. So a dormer there just gives that right angle, and it just makes it look that much better. And a mixture of an overhang and the dormer makes it look really nice. The last thing we can do is mix up the blocks. You were probably wondering why I was only using oak. Now I'm going to use a different set of colours. And more importantly, for the overhang or, frame or borders, I'm going to use a different colour so that they outline it a bit better. So you can see the difference is quite dramatic now from what we started with, which was just 2 slants. Moving on to the second design, this one's slightly simpler. We're going to be employing the same idea that we create 2 slants on either side, but this time we're going to be using half slab, and the difference is that it's going to be a much shallower roof. Now, straight away, we're going to employ the same technique we did before and add that overhang. Like I said, it is essential for pretty much every roof. And by making it nice and thick, it really creates that nice 3D effect. That's what we're trying to create here. Now, most people would maybe consider that done, but I'm just going to add a bunch of half slabs everywhere to give it a nice tiled effect and to make it look really 3D. Before, it was almost too perfect. Not everyone can get this right. It takes a certain amount of artistic merit in order to get it completely right. If you go a bit too ham on it, sometimes it just looks a complete mess and you might as well start over. If there's one tip I can give you if you want to go for this sort of rugged tiled roof effect, is to make sure you don't do it too much on the sides, especially the overhang. You don't want to edit the overhang too much. For those of you that are familiar with my channel, this next design is going to seem very familiar. I'm going to be creating the same sort of overhang, but instead of a staircase going up in a completely linear fashion, I'm going to go 1 block up and then another staircase, then 1 block up, and you can make any variation of this. It just sort of draws it up to a nice Viking styled roof. Now, the biggest difference between this roof and the others is that there is no straight line on the sides that isn't a slant. So on the front, I actually create an archway to complement the shape of the roof, which is going to dip. Once I've done that, I'm going to put it on the other side as well. Now, you may also notice that I actually had to make this house 1 block thinner. That's because there's sort of a big war between 1 block or 2 block centers. Some roof styles complement one and other roof styles complement the other. The first 2 I did were 2 block centers, but this one really needs to be a 1 block center so you have that peak. You can't achieve that peak with a 2 block center. Once I have that basic frame outline, it's very easy to fill in the top with the wood. Now, there are 2 ways you can do this. The first way is to sort of add it so it's nice and shaped and arched with that cobble arch that we just made. The second is what I'm going to do now, which is spam blocks everywhere to make it look really tiled and rugged again. The end result being that you've got that sort of really nice Viking roof style. Now, this is my absolute favourite, and you'll see me using this all the time, and in fact people did comment in my video saying, "Hey Grian, why do you only do one style of roof?" Well, now you've got loads. So let's move straight on to the next one. This is the least common style of build, and we're just going to want to knock out that layer around the top of the build. This is what I like to call a mushroom roof, and it sits on top of it, but is also integrated into the walls. That's why we're replacing it with this block. Now, I'm using stained clay because this style really goes well with coloured roofs. Instead of creating an overhang only on two sides of the building, the overhang's going to go all the way round, and that's really essential that this doesn't really have a peak as such. It is more of a dome than a roof, if you like. Now, what we're going to do is make sure that we shape it accordingly. We want it to be circular rather than square or triangular like all the other roofs. Like I said, this is very different. And in the corners, we want to sort of drag it down so it looks like it is hanging over the edge. Once you've done that, you just need to edit the top so that it's really curved and makes a nice sort of cap on the top. Once you've done that, it is all one colour. To improve it, we can create a texture by adding a complementary colour. I'm just going to use darker green in this situation because I feel like that's what gives it a nice texture. Using two different colours might not be advisable. This is one of the least common ones, and I'm sure you'd like to try it once you get the opportunity. I understand that I'm going through these quite quickly, and I will go back over them again just to show you the main points of each one. Let's move on to the final design of making a roof. This one is probably the most complex, and I wouldn't expect everyone to get this right first time. In fact, I make a few mistakes straight away when I'm building it. We're essentially recreating the Viking-styled roof, but the overhang is significantly different. Again, I'm going to need a 1-block center for that peak, and what I've done is created an overhang that arches out and reaches over the sides of the buildings, creating this elongated roof. It looks amazing, and I wouldn't expect a lot of you to get it, and I just recreate one side and sort of copy paste it and flip it over to the other side. As you can see, it resembles the Viking roof a lot, and it's really important that you understand that this is a little bit harder to do, but hopefully if you just watch this might spark your imagination a little bit. Okay, now that that's done, I'm going to quickly go over each individual house and make sure that you got the key point from each design. This one that we've just done demonstrates the importance of an overhang. And secondly, the importance of a 1-block center in roofs like this with this style, very similar to the Viking roof. This style is also really good for larger, longer buildings because it really complements that elongated style. The next one, we're going back to the mushroom cap house. This is great for low-lying houses if you just have like a little humble home or something like that. It just sits over the top and sort of molds nicely into sort of a hill or any sort of terrain around it. That's the idea behind that. The next one is my favourite, the Viking roof. I've gone over how the arch on the front is the most important thing about this feature, as well as the sort of rugged tiled roof on it and the arch dipping down. The next one was the second house that we did, using only half slab, and it's important that you give a variety of roofs in your builds. You'll notice that on my in video I used two different styles and they complement each other. And finally, it's our first one, which uses what I call the default style of just using stairs, and I add a dormer on it which gives it a nice right angle, and also I use different blocks to complement the rest of the build, as well as giving the roof a frame using only colour. But it also demonstrated the use of an overhang straight away in any build. And that's it. That was the first episode. If you like this series, please let me know. I had a lot of requests about how to make roofs in particular because I was only using my favourite style. So I hope that this has sort of sparked your imagination to reach out on different styles of roof. There is more than the default out there. So again, thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.